This morning on Real Radio 104.1. We are broadcasting live on iHeartRadio. We're live on our YouTube channel now. You might want to check it out because we got a special guest here. I'm Russ Rollins along with Angel and Carlos and Ryan Holmes. And sitting to my left is the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Oh, turn him on.
I didn't recognize him. I didn't recognize him without his megaphone.
I knew you were going to say that.
And to my right is the one and only, the immortal Hulk Hogan. What's up, Hulk?
What's up, brothers?
Always great seeing you, man. How you doing?
I thought we were doing the NWO reunion today. I'm all dressed up in black and white. When is that?
That's what I'm hearing. The NWO reunion is happening this weekend, isn't it? So
you mean it's not today?
I don't think so.
Wow.
Please tell me Kevin Nash is nearby. Please tell me, because there's somebody that I need.
He's talking trash about Kevin
This guy
Nash.
right there, right in front of you, Hogan.
I don't know who he's talking about.
That one right there, that guy right there.
He's a new guy.
I thought maybe you had a thing for Kevin Nash. I didn't know what was up here.
Kevin,
Big sexy.
Big sexy. Kevin Nash is quite the character, isn't he?
He's a trip, man. He's whenever we get in trouble, we used to run and hide behind him because he was bigger than everybody.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
He's a great bluffer.
I was unaware of his size at the time.
Let me tell you a true story, okay? And I believe Jimmy might remember this. Several years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the Arena Bowl was here in Orlando, and we worked out this gimmick at the Arena Bowl where it was going to be me wrestling against Bubba the Love Sponge, and I was going to have Dale Tordberg as my tag team partner, and Bubba was going to have Kevin Nash.
Have you ever heard of Bubba the Love Sponge before?
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So the match was all set up. Well, at the last minute, the people from the Arena Bowl canceled the wrestling match because they couldn't get the ring in the middle fast enough or whatever. So I get a call from Kevin Nash, and I thought he was cutting an NWO promo because he's like, I better get my money or someone's going to get their legs broken, Rollins. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, is he kidding with me? Oh, he was serious, a heart attack. And so I had to get to the guy that owns the Predators, say, listen, I don't care what you do. You need to pay that guy because he was serious. And so he called me another time, still kind of pissed off about it. And I'm like, Mr. Nash, sir, let me see what I can do. And then he ended up going to the Arena Bowl, and he was super nice when I met him out there because he got paid. But I had the feeling that if he didn't get paid, there was some serious NWO going on.
Kevin's all about that paper, brother. He is.
Does that sound like an actual story? Would you believe that story?
Well, I got Kevin and Scott coming in to do this whole thing, and this the 27th, right? So it's not today?
No. It's not today.
Okay.
It's 27th. Saturday. It starts at 11.
Yeah, you can get HulkHogan.com.
So
you find more info.
I made sure I gave Kevin and Scott a whole bunch of money up front, just to make sure, just to calm the savage beast,
Hey, and for those that don't know, it really is one of the most iconic things in professional wrestling now, and that is the greatest, like babyface or the greatest good guy ever to switch and go heel. The Hulk Hogan, for those that don't remember the NWO thing, I mean, what
a huge deal.
Whose idea was it for you to go from the greatest American hero to the worst bad guy in history?
Well, this time it was Eric Bischoff's idea. But when I did the WrestleMania, whether it was 5 or 6, I can't remember, in Toronto against the Warrior, when he beat me, I wanted to turn into a bad guy then.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do the Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the Triple H Hollywood Hulk Hogan back then. And Vince goes, oh, my gosh, you can't be a bad guy. The trainer person goes, yeah, I can. As soon as I walk down the aisle, I'll just do a U-turn and stab the Warrior in the back, and it'll be game on,
Yeah.
But he wasn't up for it then, and I followed his train of thought. We still did really well with the way things were planned out. But this time it was Eric's idea. And the really cool thing about this was it was during the Monday Night Wars, and we were competing against Vince.
And WCW, yeah. And WCW was competing against WWE, yeah.
Right, and the numbers had kind of flattened out. You guys know you live and die by the numbers. So the numbers had kind of flattened out, and Eric came up with this idea for me to, stab everybody in the back after the training, prayers, and vitamins. I did it for the money, brother. And I said, either this is going to be the greatest thing we ever did, or my career's over, and this whole WCW thing would be over like in about a month. And sure enough, it changed the whole wrestling business.
It did.
It went from having 4 or 5 million people on a Monday watch to having 9 or 10 million people on a Monday watch.
That was the rise of the anti-hero.
Yeah,
I think with Sopranos as well, because it was kind of at that time.
Like a Stone Cold Steve Austin. Was that
around the same time.
Or the same time?
Well, it kind of made it a real gray area. And we were before Stone Cold.
Oh, you were? Okay.
In the whole, that edgy attitude era. So all of a sudden, they started cheering the bad guys, which was me, Kevin, and Scott. And it really parlayed after the NWO went away and the WCW went away. It really parlayed when I went back to New York and wrestled The Rock, and I was NWO Hollywood Hogan, and they just booed him out of the building. It was crazy.
And what I don't think enough people give enough credit to, obviously you're Hulk Hogan, so you're the huge draw, but to have two other guys that could hang with you as far as being bad guys, with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, I mean, you don't put everybody in that position next to you and they make it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
well, they brought a whole nother element. I mean, I could be this snidely whiplash, horrible bad guy that would hit you with the brass knuckles, and when you came after me, I'd drop down and beg, please don't hurt me. But Scott and Kevin brought a crazy attitude to this whole entity, and they made me cool again. They made me cool overnight.
They brought that swagger. They brought that confidence.
That whole red and yellow thing was dying. Hulk Hogan was getting ready to put it on the shelf, and instantly it's like they just jacked me up, man.
Hey, Hulk, how was it? How was it? Did people treat you a lot different after you went bad guy? Because the reason I asked, because I remember watching the
documentary with
Andre the Giant. And for Andre the Giant, when he went heel, and he was heel like really for the rest of his life, he kind of was miserable. He hated that. Did you dislike being heel for a while?
My thing was different than Andre. You got to realize people kind of, this is a horrible thing to say, but people did kind of like to pick on Andre a little bit, like if they saw him going through an airport, oh my God, look how big he is, look how freaky.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a form of picking on people. But when he turned into a bad guy, it gave all the fans the artistic liberty to really pick his bones.
I knew you were a piece of crap.
Thank you.
But
when I turned to a bad guy, for some reason, being around Scott and Kevin, they thought that the people thought that was the coolest thing ever.
So it really it gave it revitalized you.
No, it did. It gave me a whole nother life.
I never thought about it like that. I remember while that going down, I just remember thinking, oh, cool, Hulk's going to. But it's funny when you're in that presence, because I've heard The Rock talk about situations like that where he was feeling like he was failing, and you brought up The Rock. Has The Rock sat down and talked with you and be like, hey, man, tell me everything you know? Like in the sense of like how you have been able to mastermind a media career, acting, all these different things.
I think he's figured it out.
But before this, before this magnitude,
he did call me one time.
That's what I thought.
This is a phone call I never said anything to anybody about, but he did call me one time. He goes, how'd you make the transition?
I knew he did, man.
And because at the one time I'd done like 14 or 15 of those low budget kids films. And he goes, well, how'd you make the transition? I said, I didn't want to make the transition. I said, I wasn't making $20 million a film. I was only making X a film, which wasn't a lot of money. But I enjoyed the wrestling more because I was on top at the time, the Hulkamania stuff. So why would I want to leave that job to go sit in a trailer 6-9 months a year?
Wow.
So I didn't want to make the transition. But when he hit it big after the Scorpion King and all the stuff he did, he was asking me, how'd you make the transition? I said, the one thing that I know is you have to spend more time in Hollywood than you do in wrestling. Otherwise, you'll never lose the Rock name, the Hulk name.
Yeah.
Now he's Dwayne Johnson and and he's doing great. But that was the one time he asked me just about, how I made the transition.
That doesn't surprise me. I hadn't seen you in a while, and I wanted to ask you that because it looks like he has gone to all the masters and sat down and be like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I am going to do this. And
but as far as being in the ring, I mean, he's out of the top 2 to 3 people putting Andre and Macho in there, he's right there with him.
Wow, so his work in the ring.
He's unbelievable in the ring.
Yeah. Hey, so NWO is that's what you're doing. You're doing the reunion of it all.
It's the first ever NWO reunion with Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. Eric Bischoff is opening the show with a live recording of 83 Weeks podcast.
Cool.
And this is all going down on Mango's on iDrive and Sand Lake Road, October the 27th. Doors are at 11 a.m. And you can get tickets at HulkHogan.com.
Hulk, how long did the NWO gimmick, how long did it last? It lasted for a pretty long time, didn't it? It had a nice shelf life.
It could have lasted a real long time. There were a lot of mistakes made. It lasted through the 90s with the WCW, even when we loaded it up and put an NWO shirt on the guy selling popcorn and beer. And I don't know. I wasn't there all the time.
Yeah.
I was only there. Like if they did 4 Monday night Nitros, I was only there usually for 2 of them.
Right.
So I would miss here and there, and I'd come back and I'd be gone one week, and things had totally changed directions from the week before. I was like, oh, my God, who's running the ship? But it got crazy. So there were a couple of mistakes made, adding all those people in WCW. And then when we went up to New York and Scott and Kevin and I hit the ring, and Triple H and The Rock and Stone Cold all got booed, I knew we had a problem.
Yeah.
And here's the guys coming back to the WWE that after 10 years we've been trying to put them out of business,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now we walk in. It wasn't like we got a bunch of hugs when we walked in the locker room. You know?
I can imagine
I said,
that.
Big Kev said, we need to kind of stay close together here for a while to figure out everybody, so things were different back then.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Did you ever meet Ted Turner?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. He was great.
Good guy?
Yeah, he was great, man. He just he hired me, right after all that controversial stuff in New York with the steroid trial and all that ridiculous stuff. And he hired me, and he goes, "You know something? I'm betting on you, Hogan. I bet you can put lightning in a bottle." I said, "Well, sir, I'm going to try." And we did real well. But anything Ted Turner told you, it actually happened. If he told you the horse was going to jump, it would happen.
Yeah.
Wow. And you've done a lot of stuff, and recently there was a Ric Flair documentary, 30 for 30, and what really stood out to me was how he sacrificed his life as a father. Like he and not in a bad way. He's just he partied hard so much. You never did that, man. Did you have that mindset when you became a father? Like, I'm gonna be doing all this stuff, but being a father is number one.
Changed everything. Everybody cuts their everybody cuts their own deal. So if you cut your deal with the wrestling, I cut my own deal.
Right.
Everybody has a certain amount of time they put in. Like if you're racing a car, you get a certain amount of seat time. I probably had more seat time than anybody except Andre. And so you get to a point where once you know the craft and stuff, you kind of like know your own deal. And you got to realize I started wrestling like in 1977. So, I'd been around a while, and all of a sudden I made my mind up when I first got married. I wouldn't let my wife buy a house for 5 years. I was the world's heavyweight champion, making her live in an apartment. I was as cheap as Macho Man was.
Why? Just
You're afraid.
Because
if I broke my leg, it's over. There's no insurance. There's no cut. So if I was to break, actually, in Madison Square Garden when I wrestled the Iron Sheik, the last knee drop you'll ever see me do, where I jumped up in the air, dropped it on his chest, my left knee hit the mat and exploded. I went back to the hotel and I told my wife, Linda, at the time, I said, my knee's completely blown. I can't tell anybody. If I do, they'll take the belt from me. So that's why, it's a situation you never know when it's going to end. So 5 years being the world's heavyweight champion, making all kind of money, I made her live in an apartment.
But did you grow up? Did you grow up kind of middle class a little? Because that's a mindset, right? You're the heavyweight champion, make it, but still we got to live here. Where Rick grew up in a kind of well-to-do house and had that mindset. From at least what I saw.
I didn't know any better, but we were the poor white.
There you go.
People
It's a mindset.
Of Port Tampa, and we grew up. We got like a minute steak every second week on a Friday. We get one of those little minute steaks for dinner. That was like the big deal, So I didn't realize we didn't have. Yeah, I didn't realize we didn't have any money, but we were not doing good.
Hey, can you stick around for another segment? We got to take a little bit of a break. I want to remind you that you're going to be seeing Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall, and Eric Bischoff. Are you going to be there too, Jim?
I'm going to be in the audience asking the questions with all the fans to give them to Eric, to give them to Hulk, to give them to Scott, to give them to Nash.
Yeah, but if you don't bring your megaphone, nobody will